Now, boys and girls, since we've been learning about fractions in math today, I want to review some of the things that we've been covering. And I'm going to read a story called The Doorbell Rings by Pat Hutchins. Now, in math, when we've talked about 1/2, what is the math word that Mrs. Garcia would like for you to use? Yes? 1 out of 2. Now, when I say 1/3, what part of the fraction am I asking you to shade? Yes? 1 out of 3. That is wonderful. How about 1/4? 1/4. Aiden?
1 out of 4.
1 out of 4 is correct. Now, what if I said 3/5? 3/5. Lasagna?
3 out of 5.
3 out of 5. What about 5/8? Isabella? 5 out of 8. That is wonderful. Now, if I had 8 balloons and I wanted to divide them equally between me and Rochelle, how many balloons would we get each? Isaiah?
4.
Yes, 4 balloons each. Now, I'm going to read the story called The Doorbell Rings. And what I would like for you guys to do is to listen quietly as I read and to think about the math questions and math words in your head. Each time we read, there's going to be a fraction. So think about this into your head as we're reading, okay? Aya, can you please close the door? The Doorbell Rang by Pat Hutchins. I've made some cookies for tea, said Ma. Good, said Victoria and Sam. We're starving. Share them between yourselves, said Ma. I made plenty. That's 6 each, said Sam and Victoria. They look as good as Grandma's, said Victoria. They smell as good as Grandma's, said Sam. No one makes cookies like Grandma's, said Ma, as the doorbell rang. It was Tom and Hannah from next door. Come in, said Ma. You can share the cookies. With Tom and Hannah, how many cookies is that each? Isaiah?
3.
That is 3 each. That is correct. That's 3 each, said Sam and Victoria. They smell as good as your grandma's, said Tom. And look as good, said Hannah. No one makes cookies like Grandma, said Ma, as the doorbell rang. It was Peter and his little brother. Come in, said Ma. You can share the cookies. How many cookies is that each now? How many cookies do you think they're getting each, Josiah?
2.
That is correct. That's 2 each, said Victoria. They look as good as your grandma's, said Peter, and smell as good. Nobody makes cookies like Grandma, said Ma, as the doorbell rang. It was Joy and Simon with their 4 cousins. Come in. You can share the cookies. How many cookies is that each, Rochelle?
1.
That's 1 each. Kiss your brain. Good job. That's 1 each, said Sam and Victoria. They smell as good as your grandma's, said Joy. And look as good, said Sam. No one makes cookies like Grandma, said Ma, as the doorbell rang. And rang. Oh dear, said Ma, as the children stared at the cookies on their plates. Perhaps you better eat them before we open the door. We'll wait, said Sam. It was Grandma with an enormous tray of cookies. How nice to have so many friends to share them with, said Grandma. It's a good thing I made a lot, and Grandma made a lot of cookies. No. And no one makes cookies like Grandma, said Ma, as the doorbell rang. Now, who can tell me how did our story begin? In the beginning, what do we know about our story? Josiah.
That mom cooked cookies for the children.
Yes, Ma had made some cookies for the children. How many cookies did Ma make in the beginning, Tristan?
12.
She made 12 cookies. Now, 12 cookies and there were 2 children. How many did each child get? Bishop? 6. That's 2. That's 6 out of 12. 6 12. That is a fraction. Now, when their other 2 friends came to the house, that was 4 friends and 12 cookies. What would the fraction be for that? 4 friends and 12 cookies. How much did each friend get? That's what the fraction is, yes? 3 twelfths. 3 twelfths is the fraction. Now, in the middle of our story, what happened? What kept happening? What kept happening in the middle of our story? Isabella?
There were people were keep on coming to the
But what kept happening? Yes?
doorbell.
The doorbell kept ringing. Thank you, Isaiah. The doorbell kept ringing. And the more it rang, the less cookies they got. In the end, they had 12 people. How many cookies did each person get? There were 12 people. How many cookies did each person get if there were only 12 cookies in the pot? We'll see out. How many cookies did each person get? 1 cookie is correct. Kiss your brain. That's a good job. Each person received 1 cookie because if there were 12 cookies, each person received 1. Now, when the doorbell rang for the last time, how did our story end? Yes?
It was Grandma and she made a lot of cookies.
It was Grandma, and Grandma had made a lot of cookies so that they could have even more when they were sharing. Because when they were dividing up the cookies, Ma didn't get any cookies, did she? It was for the children. So that was a very good thing. If you could change anything you wanted about the story, what would be the one thing that you would change? If there was one thing about the story, and if you're going to speak, you have to be nice and loud for Mrs. Garcia, okay? So that we all can hear you. If you're going to change one thing about the story, what would be the one thing that you would like to change? Yes?
I would like to change that the teacher and I would have cookies.
So the children and the mom would have cookies and no one else would be there. Okay. Now, if there was one more thing that you could change about this story, what would you change? Aiden?
That the mom would get cookies.
Well, that's what she said, yeah, that the mom would get cookies. Does anyone have something different that they would change? And if you're going to answer, make sure we all can hear. Aaliyah?
That the mom made 20 cookies.
Oh, that the mom would make 20 cookies to begin with. That's a nice thing to want to change so that they can share. Now, let me see who's sitting like a first grader. Good job. Now, we've been working on the prediction rocket in our Foundations and Framework reading. And we talked about the things that we know that's happening in the story, what we think will happen, and the results, how the story really ended. And we've read several stories, and each story had a different kind of an ending than what we predicted. Today, in our reading specs logs, we are going to do a prediction rocket about the story that we read yesterday. And what we're going to do is, I'm going to write on the board the things that we know that happened, the predictions that you gave Mrs. Garcia, and how our story ended. Gabriel? Thank you. So this is what we're going to do at the seating area. So I would like for you guys to get up. So please go to your seats quietly. And take out your specs lock so that we can begin our writing. Thank you.